Welcome to This Explainer. Now, we're going to start today by anchoring ourselves with a story I know you're already familiar with, the incredibly powerful story of Rosa Parks. It's an absolute cornerstone of American history, right? But today, we're peeling back the layers of a century-old mystery. What if I told you that a Black American refused to give up his seat almost a full 100 years before Rosa Parks? It was a calculated act of defiance that completely shocked the nation, ended in violence, and very nearly changed the course of American history decades before the civil rights movement we all read about today. So what if a seating protest happened 100 years earlier? Well, this event in 1892 wasn't just some historical footnote. It was a calculated shock to the system, an event that forced the entire nation to literally look at itself in the mirror. But to truly understand the sheer weight of this protest, we've got to understand the world in which it actually happened. Section 1, the Forgotten Defiance. We're stepping directly into the incredibly tense post-Civil War era. The year was 1867, and slavery was finally abolished. But you know, the path from 1867 to the 1890s, it wasn't exactly a straight path of progress. Across the South, Black Americans were facing this rising tide of discrimination, unchecked violence, and incredibly strict segregation. The highest promises of freedom were essentially being broken right before their eyes. And that brings us to segregation. While freedom was legally declared, genuine equality was being aggressively denied. Black Americans were forced into this harsh reality of segregation. It was an enforced separation that essentially masked deep, systemic discrimination squarely behind the absolute illusion of equality. But one man decided he simply wasn't going to accept it. His name was Homer Plessy. Section 2, a calculated legal challenge. So here's the situation. In 1892, Louisiana passes a new law requiring separate train cars for Black and white passengers. Supporters called it equal, but civil rights activists absolutely knew it was designed to keep people unequal. So they devised this highly calculated, incredibly bold operation. It's almost like a heist. Step 1, buy a first-class ticket. Step 2, sit directly in the whites-only carriage. Step 3, refuse to move when confronted. And Homer Plessy actually stepped onto that train to publicly execute this exact plan. Picture the scene. The train suddenly grinds to a halt. Police officers board the carriage. The other passengers are watching in absolute shock as this confrontation unfolds. Officials demand that Plessy move. He flat out refuses. And right there, he's arrested simply for sitting in the wrong seat. But make no mistake here, this was not a misunderstanding. This arrest was a deliberate, meticulously planned sacrifice designed to force the courts to finally look at segregation. Section 3, separate but equal. By 1896, this carefully planned case had actually worked its way all the way up to the highest court in America, the United States Supreme Court. The decision they were about to make was going to affect millions of lives, and it all came down to the number 7. Just let the sheer weight of that single number sink in for a second. This represents the 7 Supreme Court judges who ruled against Homer Plessy, completely crushing the hopes of the activists who had risked literally everything on that train in Louisiana. The court declared segregation perfectly legal, cementing it under a brand new legal doctrine, separate but equal. Just 3 devastating words, but they formed a legal foundation that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of American history. You see, it wasn't just a ruling about a train car anymore. It was a sweeping mandate that changed the fabric of the entire country. Following those 3 words, the systemic infection of segregation spread like wildfire. For decades, Black Americans faced brutal, legally protected discrimination everywhere. In our schools, our transportation systems, our housing markets, and entirely throughout public life. Millions of Americans were forced into second-class citizenship just because of this single pivotal ruling. Section 4, the lone dissenter. Yet, even amidst this overwhelming legal defeat, the decision actually wasn't unanimous. One single justice, John Marshall Harlan, flat out refused to agree with the other 7. He wrote this remarkably powerful dissent, warning his fellow judges that their decision was going to become as infamous as some of the worst rulings in American history. He boldly declared, "Our Constitution is colorblind." Tragically, very few in power listened to him at the time. But as we know, history would eventually prove him right. Section 5, a crumbling legal foundation. Fast forward nearly 60 years later, and we finally get to witness the long-delayed vindication of Homer Plessy's defiance. In 1896,
segregation is declared completely legal under separate but equal. But jump to 1954, and another massive Supreme Court case changes everything, and segregation in public schools is finally ruled unconstitutional. This was the dramatic moment when that oppressive legal foundation, built by those 7 judges way back in 1896, finally began to crumble.
And we can really draw a direct line from Plessy's forgotten courage on that Louisiana train car right to the momentous events of the 1950s and 60s. The immense courage of Rosa Parks, the visionary leadership of Martin Luther King Jr., the unstoppable momentum of the whole civil rights movement. The fight that these icons led actually started long, long before, and one man sitting in a train seat helped ignite that very spark. History rightfully remembers Rosa Parks, but honestly, far too few remember Homer Plessy. Yet his courage challenged a deeply unjust system decades before the rest of the world was ready to listen. So I want to leave you with this deeply poignant thought to reflect on today as we look back at the immense, enduring power of a single act of defiance. Sometimes changing the entire course of history begins with something as simple as refusing to stand up. So what silent act of courage might spark the next great change in our world today?